So, good morning. My name is Jasmine Brown, and we're going to be discussing why the girls, actually the kids, are broke, or how Louisiana's school funding system shapes our classrooms. Louisiana, home of gumbo, Mardi Gras, potholes, and yes, the famous Scrim the Dog. But there's one thing in Louisiana that isn't a celebration: the way that we fund our schools. And no, it's not because of too many daiquiri breaks. It's because of how the money gets divided up. Picture this: a child's future is not determined by their potential, but by their zip code. One school looks like a futuristic training center for young geniuses, while the other looks kind of like the set of Survivor Classroom Edition, which leads us to ask, how does Louisiana's current school funding system contribute to disparities in educational resources and outcomes, and what evidence based strategies could be implemented to achieve a more equitable distribution of funding across districts? But first, we ask, how did we even get here? The answer is simple: property taxes. Yep, it's just that: property taxes. Schools are funded by local property taxes. The wealthier the neighborhood, the more money for the school. The poorer the neighborhood, well, students get to share a 1980s civics textbook and those crayons that no one ever really wants to use, but they're free, so you use them, but they don't color all the way. You get it. But let's really break this down. If you live in a wealthy neighborhood, you can afford to pay for all the nice stuff: new textbooks, classroom supplies, and supposedly that really expensive thing called air conditioning and heating. And you're going to hear the word wealthy a lot in this presentation, but don't worry, it's just a generalization. Meanwhile, schools in poorer neighborhoods are left to scrape by, often with outdated resources, under-maintained facilities, and overworked teachers. You have one school prepping kids for college, and the other is prepping kids to be lifelong experts in DIYs. Here's the wild thing: in Louisiana, school funding can vary by tens of thousands of dollars per student from parish to parish. Again, one kid gets an all you can eat buffet of resources, and the other school gets nothing but a soggy, half eaten po' boy of performance standards. For the 2022-2023 fiscal year, per student funding ranged from about $12,000 to about $38,000 across Louisiana parishes. That meant that some parishes were able to spend 2.5 to 3 times more per student than the lowest paying parish. Now, you might be wondering, why? Why is this disparity here in the first place? Well, it's not new. This all goes back to a history of segregation, which was like the original blueprint for funding inequities. When the schools were officially desegregated in the 1960s, the funding system didn't really change, it just adapted. So essentially, the state's powers that be said, hey, we're done separating schools by race, but they didn't bother to fix how we separate them: by money. Great job, Louisiana. You fixed segregation, even though New Orleans was already serving mixed racial and ethnic populations in community schools, and you fixed schools not being racially diverse, even though students in the same socioeconomic standing face the same inequalities. The poor schools were basically left to fend for themselves, but students that were going to wealthier schools got what they needed. And this isn't just about shiny new linoleum floors or schools that get to have one-to-one Chromebooks. For NOLA public schools alone, where about 85% of the students are economically disadvantaged, this leaves a gaping pit of needs to be addressed before learning can even happen. And let's just talk about the impact on students. Well-funded schools can put up the cash to get everything you might want at your child's school: great education, extracurricular, advanced placement courses, support services for students and their families. But poor schools might just be left with the basics, and that's if they're lucky. Students in underfunded schools often have lower graduation rates, fewer college prep courses, and they're less likely to attend college in the first place. Why? Because the system has already decided they don't need it. It's a classic catch 22. The money goes where the results are. But schools have a hard time producing results without resources to support students. Resources cost money, but the money goes where schools are showing results. Get it? It's a cycle. And you may be asking, why does money matter? I've seen those teacher t-shirts where it says teaching is a work of heart, not money. I've actually never seen any teacher props that mention money in the first place. And it shouldn't matter. Teachings are the deciding factor of success for students, not money. But teachers in these schools often face burnout because they're not just teaching, they're doing the jobs of administrators, counselors, behaviorists. And sometimes the teachers themselves are even being the fundraiser to make up for what schools can't afford. Many teachers in low income schools actually spend their own money on school supplies. The tax limit deduction for teachers spending their personal money is only $300. Meanwhile, the average teacher spent just over $800 in 2022-2023 for classroom materials. Imagine spending your entire paycheck buying crayons and pencils for your job, only for local funding to be missing in action. I didn't know it was so hard to keep track of $90 million. And it's not like we ask doctors to use their own money to buy medical supplies or expect them to get paid in TikTok exposure. Hashtag health is wealth, hashtag DocTalk. But why is this acceptable in education? I digress. And guess what? It's not all bad news. Some states, such as California and New Jersey, have actually taken action and completely overhauled their funding formulas to create adequately funded schools. New Jersey, for example, developed the Abbott, or the School Development Authority, but basically Abbott, district model after the Abbott v. Burke lawsuit to funnel more money into poorer schools. And guess what? It worked. From 2000 to 2019, graduation rates went up, test scores improved, students actually benefited, even kindergartners. By 2010, the Abbott preschool program had been in operation for long enough to see the effects in action. In 2013, the National Institute for Early Education Research found that among children who attended just 2 years of Abbott preschool, standardized test scores had improved and the achievement gap narrowed by 20 to 40% after tracking students through their 5th grade year. Louisiana can do this too. And let's be real, if New Jersey, the state that gave us Jersey Shore, whatever Chris Christie was doing, and all 15 minutes of Rapper's Delight can pull this off, Louisiana has no excuse. I mean, New Jersey already dealt with the nation's first court-ordered preschool, so we can definitely just balance out actual school funding. So what do we need to do? First thing is weighted school funding. Schools with more needs should get more money. It's not rocket science, it's just basic fairness. Create a rubric of needs and allot the money based on that rubric. Second, we need more state investment in schools. This isn't to say Louisiana's not participating, they're giving us money, but education shouldn't be an afterthought in the budget so often that the money just goes missing. Sure, education is a local matter, but states backing up the budget would do wonders. Stop leaving it to the wealthy to fund a public good that most of them won't even use. Public schools shouldn't have to be relying on crawfish boils, teacher TikToks, or Jazz Fest parking revenue just to survive another school year. And third, we need transparency. Let the public know where the money is going. Let families know where the money is coming from if we're going to fund a school with tax dollars. Communities may actually rally behind their neighborhood school, whether they have kids in attendance or not. Either way, let's make sure it's not going towards unnecessary administrative expenses, like former Jersey City Superintendent's figurative taxpayer yacht. Look, Louisiana's school funding system has deep roots in a history of inequity, but we can change that. Our kids deserve more than a broken system. They deserve opportunities, fairness, and honestly, a future where their zip code isn't their main deciding factor. There's money to go around and students need those resources. Look, we figured out how to Cajuanize a foot of snow in the Gulf Coast. We can definitely figure out how to get more money towards our schools that need it most. And thank